Good afternoon from sunny Birmingham. I'm the Reverend Dr. Carlton Turner, recently made Canon of Liverpool Cathedral, so Reverend Canon Dr. Carlton John Turner. And I teach theology at the Queen's Foundation in Birmingham, which is an ecumenical theological education institution. And I wear a number of hats. I also serve on the Church of England's Faith and Order Commission, as well as the Faith and Order Commission of the World Council of Churches. And I would describe myself as a Caribbean contextual theologian. I'm a contextual and practical theologian whose concern really is the intersections of faith and culture in the life of the church and what that means for every level, for every part of the church's thinking, its praxis, but also its beliefs. And that's a way of introduction to who I am. I'm Caribbean, I'm Bahamian 100%, and I'm grateful for Feast for being able to have this time with me. The second question for you that you've posed to me, what have I been working on? Well, I'd like to introduce you to my latest book, Caribbean Contextual Theology, an Introduction, which is the most recent kind of um, reflections on a Caribbean theology, and it serves as a textbook, inviting people to not just know the kinds of God talk that have been taking place in the region since the 1970s, but it's also a way of doing more of a theological reflection on contemporary realities. So I bring various voices that many have not heard to the table. There are many people in the Caribbean doing theology, and I try as best as I can to do that and involve them in this process. But also, I comment on the complexity of the region, the historical, political, ecclesiastical, cultural complexity of the region, a region which, if we're honest, has been shaped by Europe and the rest of the world. If you want to know some of the most important um, events in history have had some impact on or stem from the Caribbean. It's an often understated region. As for the kinds of theological reflection I deal with things such as the wisdom and craftiness of African traditional religious experiences and expressions within the region, a region shaped by slavery and colonialism, but a new independent era in which we are trying as best as we can to create a society or sustain a society. And that has many implications for the church. Also, the way hermeneutics are done. I think the Caribbean has a very rich history of doing the kind of decolonial and anti colonial thinking. Many of the major scholars in the field are from the experience of the plantation or plantation life in the region across the Francophone, Anglophone, Lusophone, and Hispanic, Spanish speaking regions or areas within the region. So there's something about how we do hermeneutics, how we interpret texts and context, and particularly scripture, that I try to bring to the forefront in very creative ways. I broached the topic of sexuality, and Caribbean women scholarship have been talking about sin, sexuality, and embodiment in ways that men have not. So if you want to kind of trace the contours of how Caribbean women have been doing theology, or how we've been wrestling with the issues of the body and what this means in terms of theology, read the chapter. And finally, one of the things that I really interrogate is ecological thinking. We are in the African Caribbean, one of the most vulnerable places on earth, and it has shaped us significantly. And there's a lot of wisdom that comes out of it for us. So, in short, what am I passionate about? I am passionate about the way contexts affect theological thinking. I'm also keen to expose the kinds of systems at play, when we try to do theology, and the church is always implicated in that. And one of the areas that I want to continue to think and talk about is the psychological nature of theological research. Simply because when you work within a post-colonial, post-plantation society, you cannot do this kind of theological reflection without thinking about the psychological nature of theology, of theological engagement, of praxis, and of ministry. We have to have a kind of psychological framework as we do the theology. And one question I would like to leave with Feast is, can theology alone help the kinds of situations we want to bring change to? Because for me, theology should be an interdisciplinary endeavor, and we can learn so much from other disciplines, other epistemological um, outlooks, and other methodological approaches. And I'm open. It makes things much more rich. So thank you for having this time with me. Bless you.